we're finishing off our end of the year favorites series, which was just December, just to spend some time highlighting 2 films that we really enjoyed in some ways from this year. And it's, we had done a franchise series, I want to say last year. I don't know. It feels like forever. And we did do the Alien films. So I think, we were polished up on our Alien lore and knowledge. We'd watched all of them. And it was quite the journey. I don't know if we needed all of those journeys. I don't think
there was some that didn't need to exist. We did not need a third one. I liked as much as they were like really weird, I did enjoy the like prequels or whatever. I thought those were kind of fun, but they were weird also. But the third one did not need to exist. I wholeheartedly agree with that. It was very uncomfortable the whole time.
But Alien and Aliens are historic. And it's a rare time where people enjoy Aliens even more than Alien. I disagree. I think Alien being Jaws in space is so perfect. And Aliens is an action film in space, which is also fun. I just think like the claustrophobia and the prey, like being prey in that one is so much more terrifying. It was just like Aliens is exciting, but it is a rare instance of like a sequel doing a decent job of holding up like the lore and the world and not feeling like, did we need this? Like people love it.
I think the second one we definitely did need. I agree. The first one will always hold like as a classic. It's the first introduction to this universe, and it just. I always mix them up which one's the first one though before we did that series, so it's funny. But no, I agree. Both of those needed to exist, and this one that just came out needed to exist because it was very good.
Yeah, and there's a lot of homages to the original series. It feels like for something to come out, significantly later, and especially in the shadow of like all of those other like sequels, and this being like a sequel prequel in here, but it's a great addition to the franchise in that I feel like it added to the story. It understood the world and the characters and the struggles and the themes of the original like films, and so it was a really fun watch because of that. Like there's a lot of like references, there's just like the existence of certain characters, and it's nice after having like so much time going by to just have a film where we can like geek out and like appreciate what that original film was. And the other bonus when we did our franchise episode, one of the things we complained about was in some of the later ones, just because we have the technology like CGI and all that stuff doesn't mean we need to do it. Like there was something so awesome about like using practical effects in Alien. It just made it so much more real. And so Alien Romulus does that quite well too. Like the big creatures we see, real things running around. The real big creature we didn't like. Just a guy, and that's really exciting. And just some of the more practical effects are always appreciated in horror, especially in a film like this.
Yeah, and something that was really cool about this one, a lot of the videos that I was watching, it like really ties the prequels that were just very different than the Alien and all of its predecessors. It really like kind of like tied up a lot of like weird plot openings and holes, and like really made them connect in a way that was thoughtful and like to both versions. And as you said, like did not lose the plot. It was very true to both. But a lot of what I was seeing videos about was that like it really cleaned up some of the mess that like Covenant and Prometheus added after all the like films that came after Aliens that were not predecessors. They were sequels. Because Prometheus especially was like marketed as not an alien film, and so like it really did have to be like psych. It's Alien. So I feel like it was trying really hard to define itself as something else, and so then it couldn't really be true, and so it was making up stuff. And I think it suffered from the second Paranormal Activity movie of like not painted, like you're rewriting the history, and that's when we get like messy. And so I agree that like
this gave us a good understanding of where the effects of something like that can be felt. And like how it could actually be pretty profound versus just like whatever happened to them.
Yeah, like they use like the same goop or whatever. Like,
yeah,
it's the same little, and they name it Prometheus. Like that's the substance too. So it's like there's like little nods. It's cute.
Yeah. It's the same phallic imagery as ever. a lot of vaginas and phallic imagery in space, and I was like, oh good. I was like, oh, I'm so glad that they kept this, because like that's the part I was worried about, like that's so important, and they kept it, and I was like, that's a vagina. Sure that's what's happening right there. Which is exciting to have in film, but it was because the phallic imagery is a big part of the first Alien, to be quite honest. And to have a final girl like Ripley, going through and doing that. And so we have the same here. We have Rain, who gets to be the final girl. I wish maybe we could have did something different, but it's fine. It's still nice to have a final girl in horror. But why don't we dive in? Let me tell you about Alien Romulus, which is from 2024, and it's about: while scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonists come to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. It's directed by Fede Alvarez, who's done a lot of some of my favorite horror films. Like, he does gore pretty well, and I trust him with not just gore, but also reimagining horror, like classics, and doing it from a place of respect, place of awe, and like he's not coming in trying to make his own thing. Like, he is, like, these are very much his own, but he's carving them out in the same place as the originals, which I think is I'm just always respectful of that. Because that's not always the case. Sometimes people come in and they're like, I'm making my own thing, and you're like, what is that? This is why we have so many Halloween movies, because people came in like, what if we did it like this? What if we made it kooky?
Oh, twist, It's
like, there's some witches in there. Like, I don't know if we need all that. So, so I trusted him with this, and I was not disappointed. This was one of the rare films of the year where I went in excited. And I left still so validated for that excitement. I was like, thank God you were good. I was so scared. It was the first time I left the theater this year where I was like, fine, like that was good. That was good.
Yeah. So no, same, honestly. So
top of the year. So Alien Romulus is a tense atmospheric chapter set between Alien from 1979 and Aliens, which was in 1986. And it reimagines the claustrophobic horror that made the franchise iconic while expanding on its grim future of corruption and oppression. And its past. Its grim past. Connecting its grim past. The film follows Rain Carradine, an orphan miner trapped on Jackson's Star under the thumb of a predatory corporate system. We know them well. And forced to toil in deadly mines until death claims her, just as it did her parents, Rain refuses to accept this fate. And so together with her reprogrammed android brother Andy and a group of desperate colonists, Tyler, Kay, Navarro, and Bjorn, they hatch a bold plan to escape. Their mission? Steal cryo chambers from the abandoned spaceship Renaissance and use them to flee to the planet Ivaga 3.
Yeah.
It sounds totally doable.
Fun fact, they used real like stars and planets and stuff that actually exist in space to come up with the name. But I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, that could house, things. I just saw the images of Mars. It just looks like a place. You know? It was just like kind of dull. But I was like, that's just a place, dude. That's just like Arizona. I was like, honestly, it's less interesting.
Not that different. Yeah.
But I was like, that's a place, dude. But and this is like, part of me was like, what are the odds that like you know about this thing before other people do? That's super sketchy. So I'll talk about what that is. But the Renaissance station holds far more danger than they anticipated. And a massive haunting relic of forgotten experiments, its two modules, Remus and Romulus, are crawling with secrets and worse, xenomorphs. You never want to get stuck in one of them. They have more than one. It's like worse than Alien.
Original one from Alien. That was like the whole thing. It has the harpoon and everything still in there from when Ripley shot it into space.
And that's just one. Like, Alien had the one to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay, they have a lot to deal with.
A bunch.
So, as
almost
a crew,
aliens, if you were.
many aliens, the
Yeah.
most aliens you could have. It's so unfortunate. Like, you end up there, like, oh,
Yeah.
buddy.
All the things you could run into, yeah.
And as the crew navigates its shadowy corridors, they're thrown into a living nightmare. Xenomorphs strike with brutal ferocity, turning the station into a claustrophobic hellscape where lives are lost and desperation mounts. So Alien Romulus perfectly captures the franchise's classic elements: desperate isolation, corporate greed, and of course, the cost of not listening to women. And while introducing inventive, horrifying twists that expand the series' legacy. And with gripping suspense, visceral terror, and layered themes of survival, identity, and ambition, Romulus isn't just a thrilling addition to the saga, it's a thoughtful exploration of humanity's fragility in the face of cosmic terror. And evil corporations. Because, like, with...
We're not made for space. We're not made for other planets. That's why we're on this one.
Yeah.
Potentially. We could be aliens out.
We don't have
I wasn't made for this planet, I know. Every second is my body trying to be like, no!
I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that I always appreciated about, the better of the Alien movies, or even some of the bad ones, is that they always, we were always put with, lower class, vulnerable people who were victims of the system that Weyland-Yutani creates, right? Like in the first one, they're on a mission too. They're working. They have no power. They mean nothing, right?
The grand scheme of that.
Yeah, they're, going to find resources, and that's what they do. They're miners too, in a different way. And then in the second one, it's just their military. They're just military dogs going in there to fight something that they were told they could, and in this, with the miners living on a planet where they are just the workforce, and they work until they die, that's their whole life, and there's an illusion of escape, and it's not real, and she finds that out pretty quickly. So
company town.
Yeah, the company planet.
Yeah.
We talk about that with Expanse, right? So what is always true with the Alien films, except for the prequels, is that Weyland-Yutani is the real monster, and Weyland-Yutani is the company, the corporation that is orchestrating all of this.
Yeah, they're still evil in the prequels, but different evil.
Yeah, it's like they're new. They're new.
Yeah. Just freshly born.
So Alien Romulus digs deep into the franchise's classic theme of corporate exploitation and dehumanization, showing how the Weyland-Yutani Corporation reduces people to tools for profit. With Rain Carradine and her fellow miners on Jackson Star, they're trapped in endless contracts, working grueling jobs for a company that couldn't care less about their well-being. And their humanity isn't just ignored, it's erased, all in the name of the bottom line. She has that rude awakening when she's like, I did my due diligence, and they're like, oops, we lost that. You have to toil away.
Yeah, actually looks like your parents who died here actually had more time on their cards, so it's yours now, I guess.
Yeah,
probably.
You inherit their debt. We do that all the time in America. You inherit your family's debt. That classism, right? And so when the crew reaches the Renaissance stations, things get darker, because the station, left abandoned after shady experiments with a substance called Prometheus 5, is a physical monument to the company's greed and complete disregard for human life. So these experiments failed and resulted in catastrophic horrors like the creation, eventually, of the hybrid offspring, a living symbol of what happens when people are treated as disposable, and worse, when companies try to play God. That's what Renaissance is them playing God, which is what the first one was trying to stop. And even the xenomorphs, bred and exploited as weapons, mirror this theme. They're terrifying, not just because they're monsters, but because they're proof of what happens when corporate greed pushes boundaries with no regard for consequences. It's when we don't follow protocol and we let it inside. And to quote Dr. Ian Malcolm of the beloved Jurassic Park franchise, which suffers a similar fate, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. That is the thesis.
Answer is they probably shouldn't. Maybe we didn't.
So often they're just like, we just wanted to know if we could push the boundaries of science. Like, the boundaries are there for a reason. Like, do we really want to do that? And the crew's fight for survival becomes a direct rebellion against the forces that put them in harm's way, showing how exploitation dehumanizes everyone involved, whether they're workers, experiments, or victims. Like, the xenomorphs are never the bad guy. They are just a tool for the oppressor. Period.
Yeah. Everything, like, the oppressor's like, it's the best version of everything. It's like, but it murders real
acid,
good. Yeah.
acid blood.
Yeah. It's what people could be. Live forever.
Like, no one wants this, dude. And by weaving corporate tyranny into a story packed with scares and high stakes survival, Alien Romulus highlights the dangers of unchecked capitalism in a way that feels fresh while staying true to the franchise's roots. And it reminds us that in the world of Alien, greed is the real monster, and this theme hits uncomfortably close to home today, right?
Ow.
Because especially today, I was like, as I was writing this, I was like, this sounds familiar, because America faces its own horrors from unchecked capitalism every day.
It is all the time.
An ever widening wealth gap that feels impossible to bridge and is only more impossible.
Only going to get worse now.
Unregulated industries like big pharma mismanaging public health for profit. The fact that we don't have universal health care. Environmental destruction as corporations plunder resources with little accountability, and rampant worker exploitation with low wages, union busting, and mistreatment commonplace while CEOs grow obscenely wealthy. That's how you get an existence like Weyland-Yutani. That's how you get a Jackson Star. That's how you get it, right? Monopolies dominate markets, stifling competition and creating cascading issues like massive food recalls stemming from just a handful of companies sourcing from the same farms. How can all the frozen waffles, all the baby carrots be bad? How can they all have listeria? Brands. They're all different brands, but they're the same company. It is an illusion.
Yeah.
Where is the competition? There isn't any. The competition doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Then that's just to name a few reasons.
Yeah.
Right? So this dystopian reality mirrors the alien universe where unchecked greed and corporate power create monsters, both figuratively and literally. Like, we don't have xenomorphs knocking on our door, thank goodness.
Yeah.
A few graces, right? But we do have a lot of the things that could lead to something as horrific as that happening.
I mean, the government said there's aliens, you know?
Yeah, aliens in the water.
Yeah.
And they're literally trying to, like, they're trying to figure out the technology so they could use it for themselves. Like, that's literally what Alien is. And that's what our government admitted to doing.
Yeah.
They're like, we're reverse engineering it so we could use it. And I was like, use what? Can you explain what it is you want to use? And definitely a weapon, right? It's probably a weapon, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine if the weapon was organic. Right? Something that we talked about.
I hope it's not.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. But it could, it could be a xenomorph.
It could, yeah.
The space and the ocean are much the same.
Yep.
So you could be feeling right at home. So besides the corporate part of the corporate horrors of the film, there's this other part that I think this film specifically, although it is a trend in the Alien franchise, it comes up over and over. It's constantly like Mother, like Ripley is Mother. Reluctantly, on purpose, against her will most of the time. Like I said, it's also very, like, phallic, and then there's, like, vaginal representations. Like, reproduction is a big part of the Alien franchise. And this film is doing that, too, and I think, given when it's created, has a specific motivation, which is similar to what we were probably feeling in different times of, the creations of the other films. But I want to talk about the horrors of pregnancy in a post-Roe v. Wade world. And this is where we'll get into quite a bit of spoilers. Yeah. So I do highly, highly recommend this film. It's so fun. It is something that's fun to watch without knowing what happens. I also think it's
much as it,
yeah, and I do think, like, it doesn't have that, like, jaw-dropping reveal as the first Alien with the chest burster, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not happening. But there is a reveal of a new thing where you're like, oh, this is awful. I thought I seen all the awful you could make. They made it again. So if you want to be spooked in a very genuine way, then absolutely go watch it and then come and listen to us. But just here's your spoiler warning officially. So Alien Romulus continues the Alien franchise's exploration of the horrors of pregnancy and bodily autonomy, offering a visceral look at the violation of personal agency. And as we discussed in our Immaculate episode, there's a growing trend in horror of brutal births and unwanted pregnancy. And while Cecilia in Immaculate is forced to bear a child she doesn't want, Kay, a character in here, represents women who want children but face the dangers of a hostile world, one that is increasingly unsafe for mothers, pregnancies, and babies. We are going to ignore the weird incest subtext that's happening in the film because I was like, I don't know why that's there.
Yeah,
okay, I don't
like
really
they
get
said
that.
it was some asshole, but like I don't know. It was like
that was no, it wasn't. Okay, Bjorn and her had he was like, I'm saving you, you know, I'm saving, like, it was weird, like, and that's their cousin. So what is happening? That was not like a familial thing. So I'm gonna we're gonna ignore that because I don't get why we would do that. Why that has to be? Why'd you write it like that? Why do you write it like that?
Yeah.
Anyway, ignoring that, let's say it just is some asshole from, but she still wants this child. Like it's like she's like reluctant because of the world that she lives in, whether it's on Jackson's star or even like traveling to a new planet to have a new life. Like all of these parts of this journey are harrowing and a danger to her and this baby. But she wants it nevertheless. Like whether it's an asshole in Jackson's 5 or her cousin, it is a baby that she wants, right?
Yeah.
So Kay's pregnancy, which is already fraught in the high stakes environment of the Renaissance Station now, pushes her to inject herself with Prometheus 5 in a desperate attempt to save her baby. Her life is at risk, but it really is like she wants to be alive enough to save this baby.
Yeah.
And what follows is horrifying because the mutagen transforms her into a host for the offspring. That's what it's called. So, the thing is called the offspring, and it erases her humanity and reduces her body to a vessel of violent transformation, which is what we see in Immaculate. It's what we see in a lot of these horror films that are representing graphic, traumatizing pregnancies, because her body, which was meant to nurture life, becomes a site of destruction. It's like if we took the final book of the Twilight series and we made a realistic version of like what she's personified that birth sequence to be, it would be this. This is what happened to Bella. Okay, like, but worse. And for women in a post-Roe world, Kay's story mirrors the fear and panic many face today. And we see lives lost as women are denied care for miscarriages or life-saving procedures that are mislabeled as abortions, because any loss of infant life or like, you know, fetal life is considered abortion. So if it's a stillbirth, if it's a miscarriage, if you're in danger, like all of those, ectopic, all of that is labeled abortion, and that's not correct.
Yeah. Ectopic isn't even viable. The thing's alive.
But that's the medical code is abortion. So it's miseducation, it's the wrong wording of things, and it's also just explicit and intentional harm on feminine bodies. And so that's what we're seeing in this film. So Kay's death and the creature's birth reinforce that horror of losing autonomy, and her body is used as a means to an end, victimized by the corporate greed and a mutagen that she couldn't control. It was this one last, you know, pull for safety and a future, and she was denied that. And if anything, it was like twisted and manipulated into something horrific, and when it could have been something beautiful.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out there. Lastly, I want to talk about the tragedy of Tyler. Because what if Tyler isn't just another colonist trying to escape? but a secret pawn in the Weyland-Yutani sinister game. I did see this wild theory that Tyler is actually an undercover operative for the corporation sent to retrieve data, specimens, and other assets from the Prometheus 5 experiments aboard the Renaissance station. So I think it tracks because we know Weyland-Yutani's playbook. They love throwing people into danger for their own gain.
Yeah.
And they also love putting a secret person in there.
Yeah.
Every time they're like, what if this person is an android, or what if this person is in on it, right? So think about it. The station was ground zero for experiments with a volatile mutagen capable of creating neomorphs and other nightmarish creatures. What if Tyler's real mission was to test the mutagen's effects and recover its secrets, even if it meant sacrificing the entire crew? His actions throughout the film suddenly take on a whole new meaning, because was he subtly pushing the group deeper into danger? Did he conveniently forget to warn them about certain risks? You know, he's like, oh, like he's the one who gets the answer. He's the one who gets the call.
Yeah.
Like, he sees the ship before Weyland-Yutani sees the ship.
Yeah.
That has important stuff on it, like the important stuff.
Yeah.
Question mark.
So
this
he also knew a lot about guns.
Yes, he knew a lot about guns. He definitely was like working for them in some regard, right?
Yeah.
And so this theory is giving classic Weyland-Yutani antics, right? From Ash in Alien to Carter Burke in Aliens, the corporations always have a knack for planting operatives to do their dirty work. And if this theory holds up, Tyler could be the next evolution of their tactics, a new generation of corporate pawn caught between loyalty, greed, and maybe even coercion. That said, I do think there's a tinge of sympathy to be had for Tyler, because unlike Ash or Burke, Tyler feels like just as much a victim of the company as everyone else, right? Yeah. His desire to escape is just as real as Rain's, and his desperation and longing for freedom could easily push him into making these choices. There's an innocence to Tyler that makes me think he didn't fully understand the harm that his actions could cause, especially to his sister. And his unraveling when she was in danger, and ultimately when she suffered at the hands of the xenomorph, suggests he never intended for things to spiral so horribly out of control. Yeah. And if Tyler is a pawn, he's also a tragic one, caught between the iron grip of Weyland-Yutani and his own misguided attempts to save himself and the people he loves. Yeah. So I think,
like, I can just get the pod and also this little mutagen, and we can all go live on that other planet, you know?
Because he definitely was like, let's go in there, you know, like.
Yeah.
And someone always has to do that, you know, and not listen and, you know, get caught up in that stuff. But he did have a lot of things that, you know.
Yeah, he knew a little too much, it seemed.
Mm-hmm. The last thing I'll say is there's some mismanaged messaging happening in the film. So before we wrap up, I do need to highlight a glaring issue that I had with Alien Romulus. Because for all its sharp criticism of monstrous corporations and exploitations, the film ironically contributes to the very problem that it critiques. Because this is a trap that many films, creators, and influencers fall into. And if you think about The Boys, the show, that's a show critiquing the commodification of heroism and the military-industrial complex while being hosted by Amazon. And that's one of the biggest symbols of corporate overreach. And then it has this growing rate of like spin-offs and other things and more seasons, and it's getting more and more attention and money, that it's just kind of another cog in the machine. Of corporate overreach. So
it's like you're critiquing yourself, but like you're the one in charge of it, so you're saying just enough, not too much, because you're still under the wing.
It's like having Captain America, but it's like it's owned by Disney and Marvel, you know. Like we're forgetting what Captain America does. So it's essentially that, and like people do it all the time. You just end up in that trap. And in Romulus, this issue takes the form of the reanimation and manipulation of Ash, the ironically artificial intelligent character brought back to serve the story, right? He was an artificial being, and now he's AI. So Justine Smith, in an article for Cult MTL titled Alien Romulus Comments on Corporate Abuses While Indulging in Its Own Form of Exploitation, nails this contradiction perfectly, saying, one of the major themes of Alien Romulus becomes the insidious way corporations devalue human dignity. Life becomes measured in terms of cost and reward. Life is expendable if it means saving the bottom line. And the company's desire to bring back the xenomorph DNA undeniably becomes a quest to transform people into immortal workers who need not suffer from old age, disease, or even catastrophe. Immortality in this case is the promise of endless profit. And by utilizing Ian Holmes' likeness to reanimate Ash, the film unintentionally echoes the very abuses it condemns. Holmes, much like the character he played, has been immortalized and puppeted, his image used to serve a larger, more powerful company. And it's a bitter irony that the film's critique of corporate exploitation gets undermined by indulging in its own version of it. So, just that little bit sucks. Because I was like, it's part of it is like sweet, and I think it can be like when we see, Admiral Leia in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like when you see her, even though she's passed, like there's a knowledge that she probably was like, it's cool. She probably said, you can use that because
it wasn't like,
yeah, she was like, I live in the age of this happening. I know it's a possibility. But I don't think this was discussed with this man beforehand. And there's a question of like, where does that go?
Specifically. And it's like, that's not enough people to act. Like, like it would be one thing if they're like, can we use your likeness in future? And like, he's like, before he goes. But that's not what happened. They just asked a relative who like is one person, like they don't know, you could ask anyone if like a long lost relative if they are okay using their likeness in the future, and they could just want the money relatives. You know what I mean? Like exactly. So I'm not saying that that's what his widow did, but like it's definitely a possibility when companies exploit the likeness of somebody in future franchises down the line.
Yeah, so it's just like it's disappointing. I think, because you don't know, and I do get it. Like it was kind of exciting to see him, because it's like a part of the, and him to corrupt Andy, who was like seen as pure but was also not free, right? Like I think there was like levels to that was really important, but it's also like he didn't need to have the face. He could have just been robot.
Yeah.
Like we could have just did that. So it was weird that we went a step further and put his face on it and he's not here. You know? It's just weird. It's a weird, uncomfy kind of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.